Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Today we are going to talk about the divine union of masculine and feminine, and we are going to talk about very powerful concepts. I hope you're ready for this today. We're gonna get to some real stuff here. So this is having to do with the twin flame deities Mahakala and Mahakali. Mahakala is the masculine. It's one of the names of Shiva, and his wife, his exact counterpart, Mahakali. And this is, I'm talking about this now because right now, today is April 1st. April Fools, everybody. Today is April 1st. And in case you didn't know where April Fools came from, as I understand it, April Fools came from before Christianity in Europe. The new year was celebrated with the coming of spring. So April 1st would have been that, the coming of spring. And so there was a lot of worship of the earth and worship of flowers and bunnies and, gods and goddesses having to do with fertility and bringing the life back to the earth after the long winter. And what ended up happening is that the rich people in the cities were becoming Christians, and they felt themselves to be educated because they were Christians. And they had gotten rid of that old, silly, superstitious polytheism. And so they would go and perform pranks on the people that weren't Christians yet. So they would, they would April Fools, and it was making fun. If you worshipped the gods on April 1st, you were a fool. So it would be April Fool's Day, and they would fool them. They would basically, humiliate them. In case you want to know where April Fools comes from. So we are in this a time of normally in a time of hope and a time of change. And as you know, this is, if you're watching this, right after this is made, we are in the midst of unprecedented times. Never in my life have I ever seen anything like this on the earth. And we are in a lockdown, and there's this COVID-19 virus that right now, at least from what I understand, I'm in Australia, and they're actually getting control. They were able to shut things down. They've shut down borders, and they've shut down borders between states. So and there's all kinds of restrictions on what you can and can't do, and they're doing that to keep the virus from spreading, and it's working. As I understand it, it's not going so well in other places in the world, especially in the US. I'm very glad I'm not in Los Angeles right now. I'm very glad I'm here. But this is an unprecedented time. So I wanted to talk to you about the god Mahakala and the goddess Mahakali. So you probably, if you know anything about these gods, you already know that these gods are associated with transformation. They would be incorrectly called the gods of death, the god and goddess of death. That's actually not accurate. But there is an aspect to that, which we're going to talk about. And I'm going to specifically focus on the masculine and the feminine. And if you really want to talk about twin flame, I'm going to talk to you about what twin flame really is. And I'm going to expose to you that the majority of people who use that term twin flame are using it 100% backwards. And I'll show you why that is. But today, what I want you to be prepared to do is take a hard look at yourself and be prepared to transform, because these two gods, which are really the yin and yang, of the same essence. This power is about transformation. It's the kind of transformation, if you don't transform, you're going to die. Kind of like you can either transform or you can die. Pick one. You can transform through the act of shamanic death. That's what these gods and goddesses are about. That's why they're so frightening to look at. And that's why they are both either very, very dark blue or black in color. Because they represent the emptiness of transformation, the emptiness of what we perceive as destruction. And so let's talk about who they are. So the first thing, if you want to talk about twin flames, again, twin flames, the way I understand it, I'll only talk about this a little bit because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I won't spend too long on it, is that twin flames are about, according to the way it's taught, is that in the beginning a soul comes out and it gets split in two, and one part is feminine and one part is masculine. And the masculine is more earth-bound, it is more superficial, it is less spiritual. It is what people incorrectly call the subconscious. They really mean unconscious, but they say subconscious. And the feminine is more elevated, it is more spiritual, it is less physical, it is more ethereal. And the idea is that the divine masculine needs to wake up to its spiritual self, and then they can merge together and they can be happy. And very often on the physical plane, the physical female is waking up to herself, but the masculine in the divine masculine is not awake to his true nature. And so one needs to go to the fifth dimension and work on the relationship in the non-physical. And if you do that well enough, then the divine masculine and the physical will wake up and he'll come looking for the divine feminine. That's how I understand it. And there's a channel that I've been going to listen to this, and what I hear is really just a lot of a lot of criticism of the masculine. And human beings, human males have no shortage of failings to be criticized. But, basically that they're just selfish and stupid and they need to wake up and, all that kind of stuff. And, you need to, you need to get it together. So I'm going to share with you that is actually not at all what this dynamic is. And I don't care how you apply this knowledge. If you apply it to your relationship, great. If you apply it to yourself, great. If you apply it to the gods and this universe, both spiritual and physical, great. So Mahakali. Mahakali is the feminine. The root Mahakal means great death or great darkness. And so when you worship Mahakali, you are worshiping the Saturn aspect. She would be associated with the planet Saturn, and she would represent karma, the karma that is coming to destroy that which is not at the highest vibration. And so when you see her, when you see Mahakali, she is frightening to look at. It was hard for me to find a picture of Mahakali that really expresses what she's like, because she's actually quite terrifying to look at. But, we humans have the tendency, especially when we're dealing with a deity, to spiritualize it and to sanitize it. But if you were to really see Mahakali in her true form, it would be quite frightening. And she has a garland of skulls, and she has a skirt made of severed human arms, and she is her tongue is out, and she has fangs, and blood is coming out of her mouth, and She's really, really quite frightening. And what she represents is she represents what karma does. Karma consumes that within you which is actually killing you. So it's actually the remedy for death is what you perceive as something that's coming to kill you. But it's not. It's coming to liberate you from your own delusions, your own unconscious self-destructiveness that's actually destroying you. So when you see her in that form, it means that you're attached, and there isn't anybody in human form that isn't attached in some way to some kind of delusion about themselves. And so if you were to see Mahakali in her true form, you can't avoid but be terrified because you feel that it will destroy your life. So that's Mahakali and Mahakal. Mahakala is Shiva, is the masculine. And he represents the same thing. He represents the destruction of this physical universe and the transformation of this time into timelessness. And so now I'm going to get to what's the difference. What you just described as one is masculine and one is feminine. What's the difference? Well, Mahakali, the word Maha means great. And so Mahakali means the great death, the great darkness. So she is seen as the supreme goddess of everything, that all things must bow to her. Because nothing can escape that. Nothing can escape transformation. Nothing can escape death. And she, as the goddess of all, the most powerful of all things, she is seen as Prakriti. Prakriti means creation. So here is where you're like, what? I thought you were talking about death and destruction. She represents creation. So the reason why she is so fierce is because what she wants to do is she wants to give birth to Maya. She wants to give birth to the physical reality, to illusion. But she wants it to be from a high spiritual vibration. She doesn't want to create the kind of illusion that separates you from the spirit, but the kind that propels you towards it. It's interesting, I was just reading that Ganesha is often referred to as Mahakala. And I've talked about that before in my previous Ganesha video. Go watch that and you'll understand why. But he is the god of beginnings. So Prakriti is creation. And so this aspect of creation has to destroy that which is dead or dying or stale or dull or doesn't have power, that doesn't have life. She wants to destroy that and transform it into something she can create with. Mahakala, the Shiva aspect, is called Purusha. So you have Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is the original being that sacrificed himself for the creation of all life. And so here we're going to find out some truths about the masculine and the feminine. And some of you aren't going to like it. But I'm just telling you, we're dealing with the extremes. True twin flame is extremes. Total extreme. This is why I say there's no such thing as a human twin flame. Not the way it's being presented. It doesn't exist. And you heard the phone agrees over there. Because to be human, you have to have masculine and feminine, or you can't exist. And the idea that you would be split into half a being, and that whatever being in the universe, the way I hear it, there's this assumption that God has created this soul, and it's so amazing that he split it in half. Why would a God do that to you? And then for you to be forced to spend your incarnated life, especially the poor divine feminine who has to spend her life pining for her masculine that won't wake up, and I'm awaiting reunion. I mean, it's just so horrible and so cruel, and I just don't believe that the universe functions that way. But if you really want to go down that path, you would really want to be true twin flame. If you want to be the true twin flame feminine, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the exact opposite of what you've been told. The divine feminine is prakriti. It is creation on the physical level. It is the absolute frantic desire to take the immaterial and make it material, to create an illusion whereby spirit can live in flesh. And Purusha, the masculine, is consciousness. So eventually what happened is that Purusha meant divine consciousness, which meant I'm off in the mountains meditating. I'm not physical. I don't want anything to do with the physical. All I want to do is meditate. Interesting, I'm saying this in the first person because my name is Mahadeva. My spiritual name is Mahadeva, which is another name for Shiva. So here I am speaking from Shiva, where all he wants to do is sit on the mountaintop and meditate. He doesn't want to be a part of this physical world. So the idea that the masculine is more physical and less spiritual is completely flipped on its head. Now, you can make the argument that men are stupid and superficial and selfish, and I'm not going to argue with that. No doubt there's no shortage of those kinds of men out there. But remember, everything is projection. If you don't know what projection is, go look up psychological projection. Everything is projection. So especially when you have strong emotional attachment or agendas about something, projection is always going to be there. So when the feminine starts to talk about how men need to wake up and they need to be unselfish and they need to do their job and they need to get spiritual and they need to, basically the man needs to just get it together and do what I want. Commit to me and, all that kind of stuff. And he needs to be more selfless and he needs to, it's called projection. It means you're projecting your selfishness onto them. A good example of this, in case you're not getting it, is this happens a lot with people who are cheaters in relationships. If you're with somebody who has to look at your phone, well, I need to look at your phone. You need to give me access to your phone. I need to see who you're texting. Or if they break into your phone, or if they break into your email to see who you're texting or who you're talking to, that is oftentimes people who are cheating. And their own guilt, because they are hiding something and cheating on their partner, they project that, meaning so they see that in their partner. They're sure their partner's cheating on, when oftentimes the partner isn't. It's their projection. So if you're sitting there talking about the divine masculine needs to wake up and he's selfish and he needs to get it together, and if he could just stop being so superficial and so physical and get into the spiritual and blah, 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 guess who you're talking about? You. Because the feminine, if we're going to talk about the feminine, you're not going to like this, ladies. I'm just telling you from a spiritual perspective. The feminine is selfish. The nature of feminine is to be selfish. Now, that's not a judgment. As I teach, if you want to be spiritual, the first thing you have to do is be absolutely selfish. You have to focus on what you want, what makes you happy in this life. Your soul came here to be selfish and to indulge in this physical world. Otherwise, you would not have manifested. You did not manifest because you were punished or you did something wrong or that some being out there is feeding off of you. You manifested because your soul had a selfish desire and wanted to be completely immersed in the illusion of physical reality and to slake that desire. Now, the soul will ultimately come to the realization that, anything here in the physical world is ultimately not fulfilling. And when the soul has fulfilled all of its desires and says, yeah, this was fun, but this really wasn't what I want. I want to go back to pure spirit. And then you will never reincarnate again. If you're reincarnating over and over again, it's because there's a desire. So your desire in the physical world is spiritual in nature. You cannot judge it. You must not judge your desires. You must not do it. I'm giving you a command straight from the gods. You must not judge your desires. You can choose to work past them. If this is what Tantra is, by the way, in case you think Tantra is some sex thing, that, you can call it that if you want. But the truth is that sexual practices in yoga, in tantric yoga, is like 1%. And the kind of sexual practice that is done is to resist, for the man especially, resist having an orgasm. So you're diving into it so that you can see past it. And that is a choice. That doesn't make it, by the way, there's just as many pitfalls in that. And to be honest, in my experience, the vast majority of people who, go into tantric sex and, play around with all that are far more superficial and deluded than just people who want to go and enjoy themselves. But if you want to be celibate as well, that is a choice. Your desire, you're wanting to understand and experience the world through celibacy. But the two words that you find all over the world for the male and the female is ma and da. That's why little babies look at mom and say ma. Little babies look at dad and go da. It naturally comes out of them. You don't have to teach them those words. They will, when they figure out which one is the mom and which one is the dad, they'll call the feminine one ma and they'll call the masculine one da. And those two words, ma, means mine. 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 Da means give. So Purusha sacrificed himself to become the consciousness of all beings. He was the original consciousness. He was non-physical. But he sacrificed himself so that all beings could have consciousness, a piece of the Purusha, the Mahapurusha. Mahakali represents selfishness. She wants to create. She desires. Maya means desire. The feminine aches with desire to create in the physical. And Mahakala seeks to separate from the physical and just be in the spiritual. So, if you are a man and you want to make the most of this time that we're in right now, because we are now sitting under the shadow of Saturn. Saturn, karma, transformation, is sitting over the whole world. There is nobody in the civilized world. There might be a few people in, some tribal, cultures that haven't been, the few that have not had any outside contact. As I said, that they may be going through their own experience as well. So if it's over the whole world. But we are never going to be the same. In fact, I was walking down the street here and I, ran into my neighbor, for the first time. She was coming out of her house and I was walking and we had our distance and I said, "Hi, I'm your neighbor. I've been here for a little while." And we both were talking about it and how grateful we are to be where we are instead of some other place. And she had just come back from New Zealand and had just come out of her 2-week isolation that she had to do. And she was finally out and about, taking her dog for a walk. And we both said, things are never going to be the same after this. Things are never going to be the same. And so you have an opportunity now to look Mahakala and Mahakali in the face and to acknowledge, to Mahakali, acknowledge your desire. I want to use the word selfishness, but I know that if I do, a lot of you will think that if you want to, you will judge yourself for your selfishness, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to look at your desire. I want you to do something else. A lot of people, when, like, I'm going to take my ball and go home. The little kid who says, I'm going to take my ball and go home, doesn't want to stop playing. That little boy or that little girl really wants to play, but the other kids aren't playing with them, so they're going to take their ball and go home. They're going to act as though I don't need you anyway. I'm going to go play ball by myself. And then that little boy is going to go home and cry and wish that his friends, were nicer to him because he wants to be with his friends. And I hear people, talk about, oh, I don't need this and I don't need that and I don't need love and I don't need those things. And I've given up on all that. And it's really just you're feeling sorry for yourself and you want to take your ball and go home. And a lot of people spiritualize it and they pretend that they're beyond all of that. I'm beyond all of that desire and I just want this and I just want to be spiritual and all that. I want you to drop that. I want you to drop that pseudo humility, that pseudo spirituality. That I don't want money, I don't want things. I want you to look at what you want. It's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to actually be prevented from having it. A lot of people can't do anything. Some parts of the world, they just can't go anywhere or do anything. So take a look at the denial of your own desires, your own selfishness. This is Ma. And ask Kali, ask Mahakali to show you what you really want, what you want in this physical world, what you want from your life. And so the feminine, the essence of the feminine is give me, ma, gimme, 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 gimme. And the masculine, the essence of the masculine is to sacrifice, is to die for others. That's what warriors do. That's what the man does. We're talking generally speaking. He goes off and he goes and he works his butt off and he does this so he can provide for the family. He can bring home the bacon. He goes and works hard so he can bring home the money so that he can pay for the house and pay for the bed and the clothes and and there's a truth to this. There's a truth to men giving their life force energy. This is true in the act of creation. During the act of lovemaking, it is the whole physical point. Forget about what we want from each other, but the whole physical point is to get the man to give up his life force. Of course, she has life force in her as well. But again, if you want to talk tantric, women are encouraged to achieve climax, to release that energy. They're encouraged to give that energy to the man, and he's encouraged to hold back. But that is the opposite of what really happens. What really happens is that the MGTOW boys are right. That when it comes to the act of lovemaking, the feminine's job is to take the energy of the male and to create with it. Me, gimme, gimme, gimme. The nature of the masculine is to give, is to sacrifice. The Purusha gave himself, his consciousness up, and tore his consciousness up into pieces so that the rest of the world, all beings, could have consciousness. So from the masculine perspective, I want you to look at how your nature is to give. Your nature is to be the hero. Your nature is to be the knight in shining armor. Here's where MGTOW boys got it all wrong. If they were to look at their true desire to be the knight in shining armor, and again, what is wrong with that? If you're a true man, you have enough energy to give, and you don't miss it. You're glad to give of your energy, and even if it's a sacrifice, you're glad to give it, and say just glad to help. When you say to cops, "Thank you so much for," and the cop says, "I'm just here to help, ma'am." That's the nature of the masculine, the prakriti and the purusha. And I'm not getting to the feeling I want to get to, which is, when it's opposite, when it is wrong, when it's not working, the masculine and the feminine, you have exactly what the twin flame teachers, especially from what I've seen, women teachers, what they want to say. And it's their projection that the divine masculine is more physical and is more selfish and is more superficial, and if it could just wake up to its spirituality, then everything would be okay. If I'm accurate, and that's projection, number one, and number two, since it's opposite of what has been taught for thousands of years, it means that whenever you hear a woman talking about the divine masculine that way, they're talking about themselves. And when you hear the MGTOW boys, when you hear the men complain about how women steal their money, steal their life force, steal their energy, and you can't trust women. Women are only, it's interesting. I was reading, and I've done, reading the MGTOW manifesto and some other things, and they're talking about how women are just here to steal and take from men, and then they'll go and justify their objectification of women, and they'll say that men are naturally wired to only want young, beautiful, fit women. And it's not our fault because that's the way we're built. And then they'll go on and complain about how average looking women won't go out with them because even a good looking guy can get any woman they want. And it just the hypocrisy and the irony is completely lost on them because it's all projection. When men talk about how women are just here to steal their energy and just aren't here to support them and only want to use them, that is their projection. That means that they see women from their weakness as objects that they can steal from and use. So I want both sides. What I want is I want the twin flame girls and the MGTOW boys to get together in a room and do the opposite of what they want to do. So which will actually be exactly what each of them wants from each other. What the twin flame girls, and I wish, I won't ever do it again, but I really wish, I really want to give you the name of a channel so you can go and watch her. Because it's just amazing. I mean, she was, giving a psychic reading of the divine masculine says, and the whole reading was 40 minutes of her saying, that the divine masculine realizes that he's been selfish and childish and he's only been focused on his toys and the things that he wants, and now he realizes that he needs to give and to sacrifice and to become mature and to commit. Really? That's the divine masculine? The essence of the divine masculine is just to be a childish little boy? It's projection. It means that you're coming from your selfishness, and instead of acknowledging that what you want is to tell men what to do, and you need to be this, and you need to be that, and you need to marry me, and you need to whatever it is, instead of acknowledging that that's your selfishness, project it onto men. Same thing with the MGTOWs. Instead of acknowledging that they are selfish, that they objectify women, that they see them as objects, and that they want to objectify them and use them and then have the women turn around and serve them. and be their servant. They don't want to give anything to the feminine. They only want to take, but they won't acknowledge that. They're projecting their selfishness onto women. I want to get both of these guys in the room and have them switch sides and do the exact opposite. So have the feminine go in there and, instead of chop the man down and tell him how he's not spiritual enough and he's too superficial and he's too selfish, and instead of spending money on toys, you should spend it on us. I want you to do the opposite and start finding within the masculine what is praiseworthy, how you can support, how you can give and support and empower and stimulate to go and be and to do, to be their best. Go out in the world and be the best. I believe in you, and I'll be here to support you. And I want to hear the MGTOWs sacrifice and say, I would give anything just to have you in my life. I would go and scale Mount Everest. I would go and work for 10 years, 80-hour work week just to come back. In times past when the guys would show up with the flowers, or they'd go off and they would do that kind of thing. Go off and, get the gold or the jewels or the whatever it was and come back and give it because they believe that the woman is so amazing, just to be able to have them and to sacrifice and to give. And I'm thinking of a couple of men that I've known who literally gave away their physical energy. That you could see it in them. You could see the years had weighed on them because they spent their life giving to their wife and to their kids. I'm far too selfish to do that, by the way. That's one of the reasons I don't have kids, and probably one of the reasons I'm single right now. I love my own life energy too much. But at the same time, when I meet somebody who's worthy of that, the first thing that comes out of my mouth, I'm not kidding you, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? Can I do anything for you? I give and sacrifice anything for the woman that I love. That's just the way I'm set up. So again, for those of you ladies, the reason why men don't say I love you very easily is because for them to say I love you means I'm Purusha, and I am sacrificing my consciousness and my energy for you to live and for you to exist. I will die for you. That's what men mean when they say I love you. In case you didn't know that. In case why won't they tell me they love me? Because they're not prepared to do that yet. Whereas for women, they're willing to do that, but the truth of the matter is for the most part, when they say they love you, it's because they have a squishy feeling. And the ideal woman is one that has the squishy feeling and tells you the squishy feeling, but also is willing to go and sacrifice. The ideal man is somebody who is willing to have a squishy feeling and tell you he's having a squishy feeling for you, but his true nature is to go off and to sacrifice his own life for yours, if need be. I do it all for my kids. So this is the true nature and of the masculine and the feminine. The true nature of the feminine is to take and with that energy create and give back. So the ideal relationship that the man is looking for is a woman who will take his energy and then recycle that energy and then give back to him. The ideal male is one who's willing to sacrifice his energy right off the bat. He sees the value in the woman and he says, I give my energy to you. As the goddess, I bow. The picture, right here, I put them next to each other. Shiva and Kali. Mahakala and Mahakali. But in actual traditional pictures, he's a corpse and he's lying on the ground and she's dancing on top of him. And that means that, and there's another phrase which is a good one, which is, without Shakti, Shiva is Shava. Shava means corpse. Without the energy of Shakti, Shiva has no life. He does nothing. So that energy that the Shakti is supposed to give to the masculine, he goes off and sacrifices and then brings back and gives to her. She takes that energy from him and then recycles it and gives it back to him so that he's empowered to go back into the world to do his thing. This is the dance of creation. So I didn't really get to say what I wanted to say. I think I talked around it. Maybe you might have picked up on what it is. The point is let's get over ourselves. Both sides. You know, it's time to stop complaining. And if you're a woman and you think that a man needs to wake up and stop being so selfish and stop buying his toys and stop doing that, and he needs to commit to me and he needs to blah, 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 and if only a man would stop objectifying me and using me and it just blah, 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 I want you to drop that and say, how can I empower the masculine? How can I make the masculine feel empowered and feel respected and stimulated to go be its best? And I want the men to stop complaining about how women take your energy and how they criticize you and how they don't support you and how they always want and want and want and they just take and take and take. And instead of that, I want you to turn around and give. How can you sacrifice? How can you give? How can you go worship your Shakti? How can you go, this is why going and bringing flowers, going and buying her jewels, buying her gifts. That's what all that's about. And ideally, she takes that and gets a squishy feeling and says, I love you, and then takes that energy and gives it back to you so you can go and be your best. All right, so in the next video, the B video for this, I'm going to share a mantra that you can use during this time, which simultaneously gives you mastery over death by facing it. By facing death, you become the master of it. And I'll talk about that in the next video. So go to thunderwizard.com, and this one I'm gonna make free for everybody because this is a tough time. So if you want to see the second half of this video, you don't have to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber yet, you can still watch it, and I'll share that mantra for you about how to overcome death by facing it. Okay, so go to thunderwizard.com and click on the divine union of masculine and feminine. All right, I'll see you over there.